The stadium glowed under the May sun, rows of navy gowns fluttering like waves as families filled the bleachers with cheers, cameras lifted, and bouquets raised like small victories. It was supposed to be the day Lena Marisol Keene finally felt. Seen the day her years of grinding through double shifts, late-night research papers, and silent tears paid off. When the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, Lena Marisol Keene, master of data science, she instinctively looked toward the front rows where the signs read reserved for family, rows shining under the sunlight, rows filled everywhere else. Rows completely empty for her. No mother, no father, no little sister pretending to care, just metal seats glinting back at her like a cruel joke. Lena lifted her chin, forced her cheeks into a smile, and walked across the stage while the photographer snapped a picture meant to last a lifetime. Her diploma felt heavier than she expected, not from pride, but from pretending that being forgotten didn't sting. Around her, laughter burst like confetti. Students fell into their parents' arms, couples kissed, flowers exchanged hands like currency of love. Lena stood alone beside a stranger's family as they took pictures, smiling small so she wouldn't ruin their moment. When her classmate Dana ran to her squealing, Dana's parents eagerly took photos of them together. Dana eventually scanned the crowd and asked, "Where's your family? Running late?" Lena lied automatically. Yes, the truth had always hurt too loudly to say. She wandered the courtyard afterwards, scrolling her phone to look busy while every other graduate was pulled into hugs. By the time she reached the parking lot, the sky glowed gold. Balloons bobbed above car roofs, horns honked, children shrieked with joy. Lena sat in her dented Corolla and imagined just for a fleeting second her family walking toward her. Her mother waving, her father holding a bouquet, her sister Mia running in glitter sneakers, but the vision dissolved under the rumble of engines. She shouldn't have been surprised. They skipped her college graduation too. Back then, the excuse was Mia's urgent school project. Her mother didn't even pretend this time. 3 days later, her phone buzzed. A text from mom. No congratulations? No, or proud. Not even a question about how the ceremony went. Just, need $1,850 for Mia's Sweet 16. Send it today. Lena stared at the message while the last fragments of hope in her chest faded into something quiet, something tired, something ready to break or finally stand. The text about Mia's Sweet 16 didn't shock Lena, not really. It simply confirmed something she had spent years trying not to admit. In her family, she had never been the daughter. She had always been the provider. From the time Lena was barely 16, she wore a faded green apron at the local bakery. Before sunrise, serving cinnamon rolls and cold brew to commuters while dreaming of a life where effort actually mattered. She used to tuck her earnings into a jar labeled college, imagining the day she could finally break free. But every time the jar filled, her mother would appear with a new request dressed as an emergency. "Sweetheart, Mia's school trip is $200. She'll be devastated if she can't go. Honey, your dad's hours got cut. We're short on groceries this week. Lena, don't you want to help the family? Mia needs piano lessons." Needs. With her mother, it was always Mia's needs that dictated the entire household. Lena would nod, reach for the jar, and hear the coins clatter in her mother's purse, the sound of another dream delayed. Her mother always knew how to cloak her demands in sugary guilt. "You're our responsible one, Lena. You're our pride." The first time Lena heard that, she believed it. She thought responsibility was a compliment. She didn't understand then that it was a leash. Meanwhile, Mia drifted through adolescence cushioned by every indulgence. New sneakers, dance classes, themed birthday parties, spontaneous weekend trips to keep her inspired. Every achievement Lena earned was invisible, absorbed into the silent expectation that she would just keep providing. Lena became the stand-in parent, the safety net, the walking ATM with a diploma-shaped promise attached to her name. She worked 2 jobs through undergrad, then juggled internships and tutoring during her master's program, always sending money home whenever her mother asked. Family helps family. Her mother's favorite phrase, not a principle, but a weapon. Whenever Lena hesitated, even for a breath, the guilt came fast and sharp. "So Mia doesn't matter to you? I guess you forgot where you came from. I raised you better than this." But Lena knew the truth. She was being raised only to sacrifice. Her accomplishments were stepping stones for her sister's comfort. Her milestones were overshadowed by Mia's parties, Mia's clothes, Mia's dreams. Even when Lena received her graduate school acceptance letter, a moment she clutched close to her heart, her mother only said, "That's nice, honey. Mia needs braces. Still, Lena believed that if she worked hard enough, studied late enough, proved herself worthy enough, one day her parents would finally see her. Not as the backup plan, not as the paycheck, but as their daughter. That belief kept her going longer than she realized, until her graduation day. The empty seats, the absent faces, the text demanding $1,850 revealed the truth she had been too loyal, too hopeful, too loving to face. Her family never wanted her success. They wanted her utility. And Lena was finally beginning to understand the difference. For most of her life, Lena had learned to swallow disappointments the way other people swallowed aspirin. Quickly, quietly, and without drawing attention. But something about that graduation day clung to her like a bruise she couldn't ignore. She replayed it in her head. The empty seats, the hollow applause meant for everyone but her, the way her classmates melted into their family's arms, while she searched for hers in a crowd that didn't want to see her. For once, she let herself hope. Hope that they would call. Hope that they'd say, "We're proud of you." Hope that maybe, just maybe, their absence wasn't intentional. 3 days later, her phone buzzed and shattered whatever hope remained. The notification lit up her screen with her mother's name. Lena opened it, expecting foolishly a late congratulations. Instead, need $1,850 for Mia's sweet 16. Send today. No greeting. No question about the ceremony. No acknowledgement that Lena had just earned a master's degree after years of clawing her way through life alone. Just a dollar amount, a deadline, a command. Lena stared at the message, her breath held tight against her ribs. The room felt too still, like even the air was waiting to see what she would do. For years, she had answered every text like this, without thinking, without protesting, without breathing. But this time, the words didn't slide off her like they used to. This time, the request felt heavier, like a weight pressing directly on her chest. The truth hit her slowly, then all at once. They hadn't forgotten her graduation. They had dismissed it. Her mother hadn't been busy. Her father hadn't been tired. Mia hadn't needed them. They simply did not care. And now, 3 days later, they reached out not to celebrate her success, but to take from it. Something inside Lena shifted, not a snap, but a rise, like a tired muscle finally refusing to strain. She opened her banking app and stared at the numbers. She didn't have much, just enough to survive the next few weeks. But for the first time, she asked herself, why should my survival always come second to their demands? Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she typed, $1.0 congrats, and hit send. It was small, almost laughable. But in Lena's chest, something long silenced whispered, enough. The moment Lena pressed send, a strange quiet settled over her apartment. Not peace, not yet, but something resembling space. Room to breathe, room to think, room that had never belonged to her before. She dropped her mother's spare key into the trash, called a locksmith, and watched as he installed a new lock that clicked with a satisfying finality. For the first time in her life, a boundary existed. But boundaries, she would learn, don't sit well with people who have grown used to crossing them. The next morning, just as sunlight warmed the edge of her coffee mug, a sudden, sharp knocking rattled her front door. Not a neighbor's tap, not a delivery. Firm, rhythmic, insistent. Lena froze. When she looked through the peephole, 2 uniformed officers filled the hallway. Her heart thudded painfully. She opened the door slowly. Miss Keene? The taller officer asked, calm but assessing. Yes, Lena managed. We received a call from your mother. She reported concern for your safety, said you've been acting erratically, changing locks, refusing contact, and may be a danger to yourself. For a moment, Lena almost laughed. It was too absurd, too predictable. Her mother couldn't guilt her, couldn't control her, so she escalated, weaponizing concern, weaponizing shame, weaponizing Lena's first act of independence. May we come in? The officer asked gently. Lena stepped aside, her hands shaking more from anger than fear. The apartment was spotless. Diploma framed on the wall, job applications open on her laptop, freshly brewed coffee still steaming. The picture of stability. The officers glanced around, exchanged a knowing look. Ma'am, the younger one said, softening. You don't seem unstable at all. Just setting boundaries, Lena said. Voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. They nodded, asked a few routine questions, and documented the visit. No concerns. No further action. At the door, the taller officer paused. Sometimes when people start standing up for themselves, he said, others panic. Happens more than you'd think. When they left, Lena closed the door and leaned against it, breath shaking out of her in a rush. Not from the police but from the realization of what her mother was willing to do. Changing the locks wasn't rebellion. Sending $1 wasn't cruelty. It was enough to make her mother feel threatened. And that meant one thing: this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a war Lena never wanted but was finally prepared to fight. The police leaving should have brought relief. But instead, it left a trembling aftershock in Lena's body, a warning. A whisper that her mother had not fired her final shot. The apartment felt less like a sanctuary and more like the eye of a storm. She tried to settle back into her routine, opening her laptop to work on job applications. But her focus kept drifting to that visit, to the wild accusation her mother had crafted out of spite, erratic danger to herself, just for changing locks, just for saying no. By noon, Lena shut her laptop and forced herself to breathe. She made coffee, wiped down the counter, opened her windows to let in the crisp Denver air. Anything to pull her mind away from the spiraling fear that her mother's invasion was far from over. Her phone buzzed, not a call. A notification from her credit monitoring app. She frowned. She hadn't used her credit in weeks. When she opened the app, her stomach dropped so hard she had to grip the counter to steady herself. 2 new credit inquiries. Recent. Both from banks she'd never applied to. She clicked further. 2 accounts fully open. Under her name. Under her social security number. Under her old address. Her parents' address. A cold wave crashed over her. No. She whispered, scrolling faster. The balances were already in the thousands. Transactions popped up one after another like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Cherry Creek Events. Denver DJ Agency. Glam Studio. Balloon Looks Co. Sweet 16 Catering. Expenses she recognized immediately because her mother had texted her about them 3 days earlier. 1850. For Mia's Sweet 16. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. A setup. Her mind raced as she clicked into the details. One bank listed a co-applicant. She dialed the customer service number with trembling fingers. This is Lena Marisol Keene, she said, her voice tight. I need to report identity theft. The representative asked a series of verification questions then paused. This account was opened in person at our Littleton branch, the woman said. Last month. Lena's chest constricted. In person? Using my name? Yes, ma'am. The co-applicant is listed as. A paper rustled. Linda M. Keene. Her mother. Her mother had done this a month ago. Before graduation. Before the fight. Before the $1 text. She hadn't started this war out of anger. She had started it out of entitlement. Lena swallowed hard. Please freeze the accounts. I need fraud paperwork immediately. Of course. You'll receive the documents within 24 hours. The moment the call ended, Lena sat in the silence of her apartment, her pulse loud enough to fill the room. Her mother hadn't just taken advantage of her. She had become her on paper, legally, financially, to fund Mia's celebration. Lena's hands steadied as she picked up her phone again. Colorado was a one-party consent state. So she opened her voice recorder, pressed the red circle and dialed her mother. When her mother answered sharp, annoyed, Lena's tone was ice. Mom, I found 2 credit cards in my name. Using your address. Using your signature. Do you want to explain that? The war had officially begun, and this time, Lena would not be the one who lost. Lena chose the diner because it was neutral ground, public enough to keep her mother from performing one of her melodramatic scenes. Quiet enough that every word spoken would land with unmistakable weight. The cracked leather boots and humming neon sign made it the kind of place where secrets tasted stale and truths couldn't hide. They arrived 15 minutes late. Her mother entered first, wrapped in a floral dress and oversized sunglasses like armor, followed by her father, smaller than she remembered, eyes glued to the floor. Mia trailed behind, thumbs tapping on her phone, not even glancing up. The golden child, perfectly uninterested. Lena, her mother snapped as she slid into the booth across from her. You really made us drive all the way here for what? Dinner? We're not eating, Lena said, her voice startlingly calm. We're talking. A waitress poured coffee and vanished before the tension could swallow her. Lena slid a brown folder across the table. Inside, 2 credit card applications. Her mother's signature. Her parents' address. Receipts for Mia's Sweet 16,000s charged under Lena's identity. Her mother barely blinked. Oh, honey, that? I did it for you. You need credit history. I was helping. Helping? Lena repeated softly. You forged my signature. Her mother waved a dismissive hand. Don't be dramatic. It's family. What's yours is ours. You've always been ungrateful. Do you think the world doesn't know who paid for your education? Lena laughed, sharp enough to turn heads. You mean me? The person who worked double shifts? Who took out loans you guilted me into? While you spent my college fund on Mia's dance costumes and weekend retreats? Mia rolled her eyes. Here we go again. Lena turned to her sister, voice steady. That silver dress you wore? You danced in it using a card opened under my name. Hope it sparkled. Mia's gaze dropped. Enough, her mother snapped. You don't talk to your sister that way. I didn't steal from you. I borrowed for the family. You used my identity, Lena said. You sent police to my home because I changed my locks. You tried to paint me unstable to regain control. Her father finally spoke, voice small. Sweetheart, your mother just got carried away. Let's fix this privately. There is no privately, Lena said, pushing the folder closer. The bank already knows. The investigation is open. Her mother's face drained of color. You reported me? I did. Silence thickened around them, the kind that demanded truth. You regret this, her mother hissed. No, Lena said, standing. I regret ever letting you believe my life belonged to you. She left cash for her coffee and walked out into the crisp Denver air, breathing for what felt like the first time. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted, and Lena was no longer the one kneeling. The night of Mia's Sweet 16 arrived dripping in glitter and self-importance. Cherry Creek events glowed in purple and silver, spotlights sweeping across the venue as if announcing royalty. Lena wasn't invited. Of course, she had never been invited to anything that required her family to acknowledge her existence without her wallet attached, but she didn't need an invitation. She already knew what was coming. At 8:45 p.m. as Lena curled up on her couch with a blanket and a steaming mug of tea, her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize flashed across the screen. Miss Keene? A crisp, professional voice said. This is Allison Grant, legal representative for Capital One fraud investigations. I'm calling to inform you that the bank has escalated your identity theft report. Our internal team is coordinating with local law enforcement to verify transactions made tonight at Cherry Creek events. Lena's grip tightened on her mug. You're sending police to the venue? Yes, ma'am. Standard procedure for active fraud verification. You're not required to attend. We're simply notifying you. Lena closed her eyes. That's fine. Thank you. When the call ended, she let the quiet settle around her. Outside her window, the city hummed. Somewhere across Denver, her mother danced on a financial minefield she had built with her own hands. 40 minutes later, Lena's phone vibrated again. A text from Mia. Are you insane? The police just showed up. The DJ stopped the music. Everyone's staring. Mom is losing it. Another message followed instantly. They said your name. The bank rep said your name. What did you do? Lena didn't reply. She didn't have to. Across town, 2 officers stepped into the glowing ballroom with calm authority, cutting through the neon lights and the sugary decorations. A banker followed behind them, holding a folder thick with receipts, signatures, and application forms, all bearing Lena's stolen identity. In the center of the room, Mia froze mid-laughter. Guests whispered. The officer spoke clearly. Good evening. We're here to verify a report of credit card fraud associated with this event. The charges were made using an account under the name Lena Marisol Keene. A hush fell so heavy it smothered the music. Cameras rose. Teenage eyes widened. Parents shifted uncomfortably. Lena's mother hurried forward, smile brittle as cracked porcelain. There must be a mistake, she insisted. This is my daughter's party. The banker opened the folder and read aloud. Primary applicant, Linda M. Keene. Co-signer, unauthorized. Verification documents indicate misuse of another person's identity. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered loudly, isn't that her older daughter's name? Mia looked at her mother, tears welling. Mom, what did you do? The officer continued in a neutral tone. No arrests will be made tonight. This is documentation for the bank's case. We will need copies of receipts and ID verification. The DJ unplugged his equipment. Lights dimmed. The giant Mia's Sweet 16 Born to Shine banner sagged. Guests left in slow, messy waves. Pity and shock clinging to their whispers. By the time Lena's mother stepped outside, the sky had opened into a soft rain. The kind that doesn't cleanse, but exposes. Back in her apartment, Lena stood at the window, watching lightning pulse across the Denver skyline. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply breathed. Finally, the truth had spoken louder than her mother ever could, and the fallout had only just begun. The rain outside Cherry Creek. Events shifted from a drizzle to a steady rhythm, tapping against the pavement like a quiet verdict. Guests huddled under umbrellas, whispering as they slipped past Mia's shattered balloon arch. Nobody made eye contact with the Keene family. Pity was easier to cast from a distance. Inside the venue, the officers finished their documentation. The banker closed the thick folder containing the fraudulent applications, receipts, and ID copies. Her professional tone never wavered. But even she couldn't hide the slight tightening around her mouth, the look people wore when they realized the truth was uglier than gossip. "Ma'am," the officer said to Lena's mother, "you will receive formal notice within 48 hours. Cooperation is recommended." Her mother's lips trembled, painted confidence cracking like cheap varnish. I didn't mean, I was just helping my daughter, both my daughters." The officer didn't argue. He didn't need to. The evidence had done all the talking. Mia stood several feet away, still in her silver dress, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked smaller somehow, a child lost in the ruins of a party meant to worship her. "Mom," she whispered, voice hoarse. "You said." Lena agreed. "You said she knew about this." Her mother's breath hitched. "Mia, darling, this isn't," but the excuses died under the weight of her daughter's stare. For the first time in her life, Mia saw her mother not as an all-powerful provider, but as someone who had built a throne on lies and expected everyone else to kneel. Outside, parents hurried their own teenagers to waiting cars. "Don't look," someone whispered. Another murmured. Identity theft. From her own daughter? Shame travels faster than light. By the time the venue lights dimmed, the Keene family stood alone in the wreckage, torn streamers, deflated balloons, half-melted cake, and a future none of them had prepared for. Back at her apartment, Lena watched the city darken through her rain-streaked window. She didn't know the details yet, the whispers, the ruined party, the public exposure. But she felt something shift, like a tide turning inside her chest. Her mother had always controlled the narrative. She had always been the hero of her own story. Lena had always been the ungrateful daughter who never did enough. But tonight, the world finally saw the truth. Lena wasn't the problem. She was the victim. And her mother's empire of manipulation had crumbled under its own weight. As thunder rolled across Denver, Lena wrapped her hands around her warm mug of tea. The sound wasn't frightening this time. It sounded like justice. Quiet, inevitable, and long overdue. And Lena knew with a calm she had never felt before this was only the first chapter of her freedom. 3 days after the disastrous Sweet 16, the storm outside had passed, but the storm inside the Keene household was only beginning. Lena didn't need updates. The truth had a way of traveling, and Denver carried gossip like wildfire. Still, she moved through her apartment with a new steadiness, a groundedness that felt foreign but deeply right. One morning, an email pinged into her inbox. Subject: Fraud investigation resolved. Primary applicant: Linda M. Keene. Outcome: unauthorized use acknowledged. Full repayment required. Just one clean sentence. No apologies. No explanations. No attempt to twist the narrative. It was the first time her mother had ever been forced to confront consequences. Real ones. Written in black and white. Lena printed the email, smoothing the paper between her fingers before pinning it on her wall beside 2 other documents: her framed diploma, the locksmith's receipt, 3 pieces of proof, effort, protection, freedom. Her phone vibrated endlessly that week. Missed calls, rambling voicemails, messages ranging from guilt to rage to sudden sweetness. Her father begged her to talk it through. Her mother demanded she fix what she started. Mia oscillated between blaming her and crying that her friends had turned her into a meme. Lena responded to none of it. Not out of anger, she was past anger. Out of clarity. You cannot heal in a place that keeps cutting you. Instead, she focused on rebuilding the life she'd never been allowed to fully claim. She froze her credit, corrected financial records, closed every account her mother had touched, and created new passwords her family would never guess. She filled her apartment with quiet, not the suffocating silence of loneliness, but the peaceful silence of ownership. 6 months later, Denver shifted into autumn. Leaves dusted the sidewalks in gold. Lena walked into the glass doors of Nova Data Labs for her first day of work. ID badge clipped to her blazer, confidence settling across her shoulders like a warm coat. Here, people saw her, not for what she gave, but for what she built. That evening, she returned home, kicked off her shoes, and looked at the 3 items on her wall. Together, they told a story. She finally loved not of survival, but of reclamation. Her mother could no longer weaponize guilt. Her sister could no longer drain her dry. Her family could no longer redefine her worth. Lena had done the impossible. She had chosen herself, and in doing so, she had rewritten the ending of a story that once felt inescapable. Now, it belonged entirely to her. Winter melted quietly into spring, and with it, the last pieces of Lena's old life finally drifted away. The chaos surrounding her family had long faded into background noise, whispers in Littleton grocery aisles, rumor threads online, fragments of a story she no longer felt tied to. What remained was something simpler, quieter, almost startling in its purity. Her life, her space, her voice. At Nova Data Labs, Lena found her footing quickly. Surrounded by people who valued competence over compliance, she began to thrive in ways she didn't realize she'd been starved of. Her ideas weren't dismissed, her hesitations weren't weaponized, her worth didn't fluctuate based on someone else's mood. Her team respected her, her supervisor praised her. For the first time, her effort led to growth, not depletion. She celebrated her first work anniversary with a small group of coworkers at a rooftop bar overlooking Denver's city lights. When they raised their glasses to her, Lena felt an unfamiliar warmth bloom in her chest. It wasn't pride, exactly. It was belonging. At home, she nurtured new rituals, lighting a candle in the evening, brewing tea the way she liked, playing soft music that carried no memories of guilt or obligation. She hung art on the walls, arranged her books by color, learned to cook meals she used to think were too indulgent. She went to therapy, not to revisit trauma, but to learn how to live now that she finally had space to. Occasionally, her phone would light up with a number she recognized. She no longer flinched. She no longer hoped. She simply let it ring, then fade into silence, a silence she had earned. One golden afternoon, Lena sat by her window, watching sunlight spill across her apartment floor. She exhaled deeply, not with relief but with certainty. She had carried the weight of her family for years, mistaking it for duty, mistaking sacrifice for love. But love, she realized now, had never required her suffering. Her new life didn't require heroics, only choice. And she chose herself, again and again, until the choosing became natural, effortless. She wasn't the backup plan anymore. She wasn't the provider, the scapegoat, or the shadow. She was Lena, whole, free, beginning, not ending. Message moral for the audience: see if you've ever had to set a boundary just to breathe. Remember this: choosing yourself is not betrayal. It is survival. It is dignity. It is love turned inward, the kind you always deserved. You are not alone, and you're allowed to change the locks on any chapter that hurts you.